to your point, sensationalizing things and trap history, beautiful masterpiece where you break down all of these things. But what should people know about the true essence of our city besides just YSL or this beef going on right now? Actually knowing that this is a real place with real beautiful people.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because it's like the whole narrative right now is that, Atlanta's falling out because of this one moment. I'm just like, this moment, this one moment isn't bigger than Atlanta like, at all. Like, Atlanta is so huge in terms of culture, in terms of history, in terms of the civil rights movement, in terms of hip hop, in terms of just what we've done as a city that's pretty much become, one of the most, basically the top black city in America. There isn't another city in America that's on the level of Atlanta in terms of access, in terms of providing opportunities for people in these communities. So it's like Atlanta is a one of one, right? And so one situation like this isn't going to like tear the entire city down at all. Like I just think this is just it's a to me it's a funny moment, it's an interesting moment, but it doesn't like represent the totality of what Atlanta represents as a whole and as a culture. Like we still winning. Like we still up by like 100. There's no other city that can compare in terms of culture, in terms of hip hop culture. Like, okay, so let's say Atlanta falls off. Who's gonna be next? Like LA had a run with Kendrick last year and GNX and things of that nature, but they're still not on the level of Atlanta. Like you have a Kendrick and you have a few artists that's coming out on the West Coast, and shout out to the West Coast, they're doing their thing, but it's still not Atlanta. Like New York, they have a few artists that's coming up. They have a few, people that's doing their thing. But and again, it's not Atlanta. Like it's not Atlanta in terms of the powerful structure and how it's influencing people. And so yeah, it's not going to happen in terms of like Atlanta falling off because of this moment. Like people got to know that there's a reason why Atlanta has been so successful for so long within culture. And this one thing that's happening with Thug is not going to stop the momentum.
Good people. What's up? What's good, y'all? I'm blessed to be your host, Caleb Smith. Today's guest, man, one of my personal favorites. Anytime, that you guys see him, you already know you're going to get real journalism, real Atlanta perspective. AR Shaw, brother. During this time, the past week and a half, it's been absolutely crazy. This past weekend, man, Labor Day weekend, I was sitting down and I kept seeing all these Thug tweets, even more tweets. And you were the very first person who I thought about. I was like, yo, I got to ask AR about this, man. So how are you feeling, bro, first off, before we even get started?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good. It's been a crazy summer for Atlanta. It's been an interesting summer for Atlanta, and for it to end like how it ended, just lets you know that we're still in it for a long ride in terms of the end of 2025.
Indeed, brother. Y'all, executive editor of the Atlanta Daily World. Check out AR, man, all platforms. Brother, starting off, Thug, man, before we even press play, behind the scenes, you was like, yo, another tape just dropped. I was like, bro, another one? You said, yes, bro, another one. With Thug talking to his girlfriend, Ride the Scientist, speaking about Glorilla, who is a female rap superstar. What did this tape entail, and what were your thoughts initially upon playing the tape?
All right, so I want to kind of go backwards, right?
Yeah, sure.
Because a lot of the stuff that I talk about is in my book in terms of just, trap history, how the trap was started, what it represents, and how it correlates to street versus the music, right? Initially, and we're gonna get to Glorilla, but I want to kind of start where it started, with that release of Thug, basically discussing. It was an interrogation audio of him discussing the shooting of Lil Wayne's tour bus. That was like 2015, and so he gets they released this audio. And it's basically, a lot of people who are saying that he's implicating Pee Wee in this shooting. So I'm not in the streets. I'm a journalist, but I cover Atlanta. I cover every aspect of Atlanta. I cover trap music. I cover, not just trap music, but the communities that pretty much inspired trap music. And then when I heard the first tape, my initial thoughts was like, man, these are the repercussions of what I was talking about in trap, right? These are the repercussions of communities that have lack of education. We got redlining that pretty much created these communities. You put in the drug war in the 1980s and the 90s, and then you have these individuals who pretty much have to they have to survive through street codes, which is the underground economy, right? So you have to live by rules that are made up within these environments, right? Unfortunately, a lot of individuals who live in those environments or who've been able to escape those environments through music can't, they're still trapped. They're still trapped in their mentality where it's like, I still have to live by these street rules. I still have to live by a code that you really no longer really have to live by, because you've pretty much, used your creativity to escape all this stuff. But you're still stuck in these environments. You're still stuck in this mentality where you feel like you have to, live by a certain code. And so I'm hearing all this stuff play out in real time, and I'm like, man, this is exactly what I was talking about in trap history in terms of being trapped physically and being trapped mentally in these environments.
Indeed, they are. Hearing this term go viral now about Ratlanta.
Okay.
How do you feel about, seeing people trying to make jokes about Atlanta now? Our stars, our entertainers, our rappers, oh, hey, everybody's a rat. How do you feel? And also, do you feel like people are kind of waiting on Atlanta's fall because we've been so dominant for so long?
So Atlanta is like Thanos. Atlanta is like, when it comes to hip hop, when it comes to culture, Atlanta is Thanos, right? The big bad, like nobody can stop Atlanta. Like if you talk about hip hop and the origins of hip hop, of course started in New York. And then New York had it for, I would say into like the mid 90s, early 2000s. Atlanta has had control of hip hop culture for 30 years. There's no other city in America, in the world, that's had control over a genre or a culture for that long, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of people outside of Atlanta that's like, oh man, this their time to fall. This is it for Atlanta. Like this is it. Like, this is going to pretty much destroy them. Now, if Thug was, let's say Thug was from Milwaukee. I'm not trying to bash anybody from Milwaukee, but let's say Thug was from Milwaukee, and Thug was the biggest star in Milwaukee. Milwaukee doesn't have an infrastructure. They don't have a culture like Atlanta. They don't really have the same, movement that Atlanta has. And so, if one artist, from another city, like I say, Milwaukee, if he fell off, then that's it. But Atlanta's infrastructure when it comes to culture, when it comes to music, is so deep, it's so heavy that one person or one genre is not going to stop the movement. You got to understand in terms of what Atlanta has. We could just take this summer. Like you had Metro Boomin to put out the Futuristic Summer, which was pretty much paying homage to that fun era in Atlanta where everything was about partying and just having fun, right? And Metro Boomin brought that feeling back. And then you get a JID who's bringing the lyricism back in it, and he's like bringing that same that same feeling that Outkast and Earth Gang were bringing. So you get that from JID who put out a great project. Offset put out a good project. Gunna put out a good project. All this within the last 3 or 4 months, right? So you can't say that Atlanta is falling off musically because the music is still thriving, to this day. And so that's just from this generation. But if we go back, you got Outkast going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. 2 Chainz just released a good album with Larry June, and he's doing this thing. Killer Mike got Grammy. So it's just like a lot of people want Thanos to fall, which is Atlanta, but Atlanta's infrastructure and its culture is too big to fail over this one thing.
AR, you were cooking, my brother, because to your point, this past weekend, college football, every touchdown, every kid is doing YK Nisa celebration. In the comments, somebody commented, and I had to screenshot it. They said Atlanta dominates the culture. I'm like, man, hey, we still got it. To this point right now, everybody's still talking about Thug. So even if it's positive or negative, everybody's still talking about it. Man, why do you think Kendrick's name popped up in that conversation, AR? And bro, I laughed because I'm like, man, AR, he told us about Kendrick. He's he's that dude. Why do you think Thug, he was so desperate? Like I could hear it in his tone of his voice, entitled. Why was he so pressed about Kendrick in your own opinion, AR?
Well, I think Thug was trying to create this moment. The Business is Business album was supposed to be this big moment. And then in previous conversations, he was talking about when he was going to release the album, he wanted to go head on head against Gunna. He wants to he wanted to kind of like show people like, look, I'm still out here. I can still make moves even though I'm locked down behind this YSL case. So I think he wanted Kendrick on this song. I think the song was called With the Racks. I think it had 21 Savage and Travis Scott, and Yet got it on it. And you hear this conversation, and it's an interesting conversation, right? Because it starts out where he's like, "Yo, is Kendrick gonna get on the song?" And then the manager's like, "Well, he might, but we don't know yet because Kendrick is rare. He don't take money. He just if he wants to do it, he's gonna do it." And so Thug just gets on and goes on this rant where it's just like he just started dogging Kendrick, right? Saying that he's not as good as Drake, saying that he shouldn't be giving verses to Baby Keem because Baby Keem isn't gonna move. He's even like talking bad about Kendrick Lamar not posting on Instagram, which is crazy to me. But so you seeing like, all right, on one hand, some people are like, all right, was he just that bored behind, during this, behind bars where he just like, was just saying anything? But I'm just like, I don't know, because it's like, this kind of shows the character of a person when it's like you going that far to like put somebody down that you actually want to work with, which is just like, why, why do you want to work with this person if you feel this way about this person? So for me, I was just like, it just don't feel right. Even though Thug is from Atlanta, I've interviewed Thug multiple times, did a cover story on him years ago for Rolling Out magazine. So, me being objective, I'm just like, what was the purpose? And like I said, it just kind of shows you, a person's true character.
All facts, brother, because it's like from seeing Thug speak to kids doing community service and things like that. I'm seeing him wearing a tank top recently. And I'm like, are you actually taking this serious? Or are you just doing this just to put in community service hours? And it's like from hearing those phone calls, I'm like, bro, and then hearing how he was talking about Gunna and now seeing Gunna's massive success. How do you think Gunna is probably feeling right now from seeing the overall success from his album, but also seeing Thug, who tried to tear down his image, now going through it? What do you think is probably going through Gunna's mind?
No, I think Gunna is in a great place, right? I think Gunna, after that moment, he pretty much got focused. He did what he had to do. Started working out. He actually just did a run, like a 5K up in New York.
Saw that, bro. Look, I got to join the one when he does it here in Atlanta, bro.
For real. Yeah, so I mean, he's about health now. You know what I'm saying? He's staying focused, staying out the way. Yeah. He ain't on social media. He just putting in the work. He's just doing the music. So I think Gunna, I think he's actually winning right now. I think he's proven that those street codes don't really matter to the main scheme of things, right? I think a lot of times, when you're in these environments, it feels like the world, right? Yeah. You in these communities, it's like, all right, whatever happens in these communities or these streets or these apartments, that's what happens everywhere. But the average person, they don't really care about that. Gunna's making great music, so the people who like his music, they still gonna rock with him, regardless of if they think he told on somebody or not. For them, at the end of the day, it's the bottom line. Can you entertain us? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about entertainment.
AR, do you feel like the streets are done then? Because I've seen certain tweets, certain people saying, hey, the streets, it might be dead. Because for once, I see that people aren't siding with Thug. People actually siding with Gunna before all of this stuff even came out. Do you feel like those same effects of, if you know how it was like in the early 2000s, especially like G-Unit days of always being hard, those days are pretty much done. And now people, we just want to experience good music positivity opposed to drill or just keeping up that street essence. How do you feel about that?
That's a good question. I think, so when we talk about, all right, so there's this thing called, back in the day, I'm going back to old literature, right? They were called slave narratives. And basically these were narratives about former slaves, about what they had to go through during their time. And, so it's like, for the average person who doesn't live this life, it becomes like, wow, this is the life. You're able to enter this world that you won't be able to enter otherwise. In a sense, hip hop is like that, right? Because hip hop kind of tells you the tales of young Black men and women going through these traumatic experiences, these traumatic, from these communities, and they're giving you a look that you can't get on a day-to-day basis unless you're involved in these spaces, right? Yeah. And so that gets transferred to the music, where you have now this street culture within music about, all right, this is what it means to be a part of this environment. This is what it means to live on Cleveland Avenue. This is what it means to live on Zone 6, to live in Zone 6. And so you are creating this perspective for the outside world. Now, who is this for? Like, who is consuming this music, right? Most times, it's not people that look like us, because it's like they're fascinated by this culture. They're fascinated by these stories of danger, because you can live this danger without actually having to experience it through the music, right? And so, again, like you said, is the street culture dead? Is this going to be the end of the street culture? It's possible. With genres come and go. I wrote about trap music because it was like a genre that was more than 5 years old. Like, trap music has been around for like over 20 years, right? So it's like, for me, it was like, all right, let me shed insight on what this represents, right? I think this next generation going to have to wise up, though, right? Because it's like, all right, we saw initially with this YSL trial that, okay, they can use your lyrics against you. Everything that you say can possibly be used against you in the court of law. So how much of this narrative that you're bringing from your communities do you actually want to put in the record? And so I think that next generation going to have to wise up and be like, okay, do we really want to go down that path? And so in the end of my book, Trap History, I'm like, these stories have been told so that they wouldn't have to be lived again. And so hopefully when people see these experiences, that these environments are corrected, and that the next generation don't have to go through what that other generation has went through. So hopefully people can learn from it and say, all right, we can get back to the fun in music, because that's really what it's all about. How can you entertain? How can you make people move?
Man, that's a powerful breakdown, bro, because for myself, I remember I would probably say like towards the end of high school, college for sure, Gunna was like on this crazy rise.
Yeah.
And I remember, man, he caught my eye early. But now I can firmly say he might be one of my favorite artists, because Drake, he was that guy for me. But after the whole thing, he lost a lot of cool points for me, just off of like character.
Yeah, it's character.
And then it's like, bro, seeing Gunna, I see myself, like seeing him hit the gym. He's running, he's putting in work. He got his girl now. Like, he's just super locked in. And I'm like, I can relate with that.
Yeah.
Do you think that right now Gunna is like becoming a new Drake? Not of Drake's superstardom to that extent, but do you think he's on that way right now?
As far as being like one of the top artists?
I would say, yeah, top artist, and then also starting to get into that like superstar ilk right now.
Yeah, this actually helps Gunna to become a superstar, right?
Yeah.
But I think because it's like this whole they releasing these audio tapes of Young Thug in jail, almost like their podcast, right?
Yeah.
It's like a new podcast episode of Rice Street that's happening every week. But it does help. It helps Gunna in a way where it's like, all right, now people want to pay more attention to him and his persona. And like I say, doing that 5K run in New York, that's big too, because he's getting like free press off of that. So for Gunna, I mean, for him, he just needs to stay focused. I think he can reach that next level. But for him, it's just like, all right, stay focused. And if I'm him, I'm going to start working with more people outside of my producers, just to kind of experiment with different sounds.
Yeah.
He's at that point where he can do that now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think in the next couple of years he could be that guy. Like, he could be the guy.
Indeed. Very last question on Gunna then, but we're going to talk about Thug, all of that craziness right now too. How did you feel about Gunna's most recent album, the last one? How did you feel about it?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you my honest opinion.
Yeah.
Sonically, it's good. Like, sonically, I think he's still doing it. But for me, I want him to kind of explore more. I want him to experiment more. Because some of the songs kind of sound a little bit redundant. I'm just like, all right, it moves now, but it's just like, for me, I want him to kind of grow. And again, like, this is his last one on YSL officially, so maybe he just like gave him a throwaway.
True.
But I like to see him like experiment. Like, he's done some stuff with Afrobeat artists. So I want to see that. I want to see him like work with Pharrell. Like, I want to see him like, you know what I'm saying? I want to see him explore. I want him to actually reach his full potential.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to kind of get out of your comfort zone to reach your full potential. And he can do it. I think this next album, he can start working with bigger producers. Like I said, I want to see him over rappable Pharrell beat. I think that'll be something
I like
nice.
that. I like that, bro. Recently, P from QC, he was on the Breakfast Club. They had a great interview. You know, he was talking about his Bojangles franchises, all of that. But Charlemagne, Lauren LaRosa, DJ Envy instantly asked him about Atlanta. YSQC falling apart. We got Thug, all of this foolishness going on right now, right? So everybody's talking about Thug. Right now, man, where do you think Thug, his personal grade is sitting amongst the people right now? Do you think here in Atlanta and also globally, people still look at Thug with that reverence? Because I was never really like a Thug fan. I never really liked his music. But I know my friends, everybody was loyal to Thug, man, since day one. And I'm questioning now because those people would talk down on Gunna. So it's like, does this now just apply to him? So how do you think, I would say, Thug's Q rating is right now amongst everybody in the culture?
His brand is at an all-time low. Like I've followed Thug since he first started. Like he was introduced to Gucci by Pee Wee Longway. Wow. And Gucci signed him to like a little short deal, and then Gucci went away, and then he was able to work with 300, Kevin Liles, and Kevin Liles helped him to reach that level. And so I follow, like, from a journalistic standpoint, I follow Young Thug's career and seeing how he's pretty much grown over the years from a music standpoint. Even when he's like made bad decisions or just questionable decisions that people question, like even like when he was on the album cover with the dress.
I did a whole project on that.
It was an interesting decision, but it didn't do anything to his career. Like it was like, all right, that's Thug. That's who Thug is. He's gonna do whatever he want to do. Nobody really cared, right? Yeah. This situation is bad on multiple fronts because one thing is like, he had when the YSL case initially started. I mean, it was national news. Yeah. Like I was on ABC, I was on NPR, like talking about these things about this YSL case. And so people were paying attention to Thug, and when the case ended, and he got an opportunity to get, he got probation for I think like 15 years, which is to me is crazy. That's crazy, get 15-year probation.
Better not mess up.
Yeah, you can't mess up. But my whole thing was like, all right, now this is his time to kind of like, you can really do something big. Just follow what Gunna did, right? Put out a First Day Out song, hit the gym, and just, get your health right. Yep. None of that happened. We see none of this stuff has happened, right? And it's just like, he released one song with Future, but it didn't really hit like people thought it was gonna hit, right? So it's just like, all right, he's making all the wrong moves, and then this situation happened, which he really didn't have control over the situation in terms of the leaks. Now, he did have control over what he said, because you have to know that every call is being recorded, because it says before anybody who has anyone, relative or friends in jail, they say this call is being recorded. Yeah. So it's telling you that it's being recorded, right? But yeah, he's made all the wrong moves, and I don't know if it's just like a lack of mentorship or somebody that's in his corner that's actually going to tell him, all right, nah, don't do this, don't move this way. According to those phone calls, it seemed like 21 Savage was the only person that was willing to say, look, all right, this might not be the way you need to move. You need to move this way. So it's like, for me, from an artistic standpoint, I'm like, who's in his corner telling him what to do next? Yes. And that's the biggest issue. Like, I don't know if anybody's like telling Thug, all right, do this, and this, and then you can get, you get this outcome. But right now, his brand is at an all-time low. Now, it doesn't mean that he can't come back. It's gonna be hard because of, like I say, we just got this audio release to Glorilla, and people love Glorilla. So you can't really. It's hard to go against Glorilla. Like, people just love Glorilla, and so you can't. People love Kendrick. You know what I'm saying? So he's like talking against a lot of people that have a lot of fans, and so in order for him to get out of this rut, he's gonna have to come out with undeniable music. Almost like R. Kelly did back in the day, right?
He ain't got R. Kelly's gift.
You might have got R. Kelly's talent, but I'm just saying that's what it's going to take for him to come back. Otherwise, it's not really looking too good.
Man, AR, why do you think that Thug was talking about Glorilla in that manner? What do you think led Thug to even start just lashing out that way? Do you think potentially she turned down a feature? Because I see like that one common theme. If you turn him down for a feature, then he just loses it. Do you think that was possibly the case with that situation, maybe?
I have no idea because we only got an opportunity to see a clip, hear a clip of it. I would need to hear like the entire discussion of what led to it. Right now that they're only showing the clip, they're only playing the clip of him like basically just going in on her. So I'm not sure what sparked this. Yeah. But yeah, right, with the Kendrick situation, it was sparked because he wouldn't get on a song, or he was, for whatever reason. But yeah, it's just I don't know if it's just like too much time on your hand when you're in jail. You just waiting, and I guess everything, all the emotions that you have, you just feel like you got to talk about it. But yeah, man, I think that's a bad look to go at Glorilla, man. It's a lot of people love Glorilla.
Yeah, indeed. Do you think also of Thug not going to the gym and taking care of his body kind of just reflects who Thug is right now? Do you think Thug basically doesn't have his ear to the actual streets of people's pulse of what fans actually want to see? Because like what you said earlier, seeing Gunna, his rollout, it was genius. Now he's sponsored by Under Armour. Like that's crazy for just working out. AR, yourself, I be seeing on your story, you be running. So it's like everybody is in this current era of health and fitness, wellness, taking care of ourselves. But then when we see Thug, Joe Budden, he was even talking about it. Joe was like, bro, you look terrible. Like, take care of yourself. Do you think that kind of shows us, hey, it's kind of like a microcosm, I would say, of Thug right now, that he's not taking care of himself, thus he's not taking care of his music and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, in those conversations, it just sounds like there's a lot of anger. You know what I'm saying? It sounds like there's a lot of discomfort, within himself that he's dealing with, and going through a trial where you could face life in prison, that could really mess your mental up. So, we got to look at both sides. Was there some type of mental health issue going on that we're not really talking about? Is he dealing with something mentally that's not being expressed? Or just, like you say, it just could be his character. We don't know. It could be just a character flaw. You're like, it's either or, right? But yeah, I mean, it's odd that he's not taking it seriously in terms of your health and because everybody's on that. I mean, if you're looking like Little John, is a
Little John, you're right. He's swole.
he's a bodybuilder now. I think he's like 52 or something. Yeah. And he's out in Venice, you know what I'm saying, doing these competitions. And so, yeah, it's the days of eating bad and eating that food that they serving you in the hood, eating those Cheetos. And it's the days are over for that. So it's like, I think everybody's on this health conscious tip right now. And like you say, we see it with Gunna, and unfortunately, like Thug didn't do the same thing. And I hate to get in people's relationships, but it's like, your woman should push you to do that too, though, right? But I'm not gonna go there because I don't really know what she's saying or what she's not saying to him. But you would hope someone would push you to be like, all right, let's get up at 6 a.m. and run these laps. You know what I'm saying? Let's do this and let's get a clearer mind and focus. And it's not too late. He can still do it. But like I said, it's just gonna be a long road back from where he's at right now.
AR, brother, you've been in the forefront of this case since day one. To your point, ABC, everything, everybody knew, hey, contact AR Shaw. From seeing the case from its very beginning at the inception point to now, even after the case, it's still like YSL is still the topic of conversation. That one line that everybody keeps focusing on when the judge asked, or the attorney rather, is YSL a gang? And Gunna said, yes, ma'am. Is that considered one of those points that's snitching to you, AR, or do you think in that moment Gunna just had to do what he had to do to get back to making music his career? Because everybody keeps going back to that one pinpoint. Do you think that it was that big of a deal, AR?
So what it was an Alford plea. So basically an Alford plea is like, all right, you admit to certain things, but it's like you're not going to actually go to trial. You don't have to testify. So it's basically, what people have to understand is that with the Alford plea, is basically like he's giving them something, but it's like they're not really going to use it, right? So that was the thing. Like the jury didn't hear that audio. So yeah, they never heard that. So that was never any that evidence wasn't submitted in court by either side. The defense or the prosecution didn't submit Gunna's testimony. Gunna didn't really, and I told you when we first talked about this, and I saw and I just read the entire case and what the case was about. I'm like, Gunna doesn't really have anything connected to this. They really just trying to get a lot of people involved, and then they're gonna work backwards to try to figure out who they can get to like say something, right? But if you look at the case, Gunna didn't really have much involvement. he was just basically caught up in a bad situation. Like your parents say, don't be around the wrong people. This was a situation for Gunna. He was just around the wrong people. And so yeah, I don't, from what I've seen in the court, what Gunna said didn't really have any. It didn't really matter what he said because it didn't have any weight on what the jury saw. So it wasn't an evidence that was submitted in court. And like I say, even if Gunna was to testify, it wouldn't have held any weight because he wasn't around YSL, and because most of the crimes that occurred was like 2015 and back, right? This was stuff that was happening like 10 years ago. Yeah. And so Gunna really wasn't around then when all this the heavy stuff was going on. So that's why you got all, stuff, the Woodies and the, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's why you got the testimony from them because they were there for years, but Gunna really wasn't a part of that. So to me, the fact that Gunna was looped into that situation of him being considered a snitch just didn't really make sense because his testimony, it wasn't a testimony, but what he did in the Alfred plea wasn't used in court.
Thank you for that great breakdown, because now after hearing all of that, I'm like, this was, to me, a real generated narrative that somebody created to push, because now everybody then tried to call him a rat, all of those things. So what do you think led to him and Thug falling out then, if, to your point, that Gunna really didn't snitch to begin with? So what do you think caused that big split between Gunna and Thug then?
Well, it wasn't a split between Gunna and Thug. It was a split with Thug and Gunna. So Thug was the one who was kind of like, he felt a certain type of way. And we heard on those calls that he felt like he shouldn't have said anything. He wanted him to stay, just basically stay down, stay in jail, and then figure things out. And to a certain extent, if Gunna would have stayed, like he was, they didn't have anything on Gunna. So a conviction probably wasn't going to come Gunna's way at all. But he would have had to stay in jail longer. So it's just like, who wants to stay in Rice Street? The Fulton County Jail, which has like rats, and it's very deplorable because the conditions in Rice Street, Fulton County Jail, for those who are outside of Atlanta watching this, some of the most deplorable conditions that you're gonna ever find in a jail in America. Is really bad. So they're actually trying to figure out how to get more money into Fulton County to get some more, just to refurbish it in some type of way. But it's really bad. But yeah, so Gunna, for him, he's like, yo, I'm trying to get up out of here. So he had been in jail for quite a while when they offered him that Alfred plea. And so I think for Thug, in Thug's eyes, it was kind of like, he heard that clip from that audio clip of him saying that YSL is a gang. And I think it kind of like, for him, I think it hurt him. Yeah. I think Thug was really genuinely hurt by Gunna. And I think he did invest a lot into him. Yeah. He put a lot of money into him, and then he did give him that platform. So we can't take that away from what Thug did. Thug did a lot for Gunna in terms of that initial push, that early push. So he was hurt. He was hurt by it, but I think he should have listened to 21. Because 21 was like, look, man, I don't even think, brother, 21 Savage doing a conversation that was leaked. 21 Savage tells Thug, look, I don't think Buddy meant to hurt you like that. You know what I'm saying? I don't even think it was like that. And then, then 21 gives him he gives him another option. He's like, look, instead of going at him, just extort him, which is messed up, quite messed up. But 21 was like, you need to, get 80% from that next album, which I don't think was going to happen. But I think 21 was basically like, look, don't play it the way you're trying to play it, because people don't care if he snitched or not. If he's making good music, they're going to rock with him.
That's right. Wow. Hearing that, I think about on the same phone calls that were then, leaked out to the world, to Twitter, about Thug referring to, hey, I bought this many bots for Gunna's album that then surpassed the Weeknd's, and it was a very, very close margin, which then shows that was true. Then him becoming number one came from those bots, and then that then confirmed everybody else's theories about artists buying bots for number one sales, all of those things. Initially, from hearing that part of the conversation, what were your thoughts about hearing about the purchasing bots and things of that sort? And do you think that other artists are also implementing that same strategy?
So out of every audio, every audio clip that was leaked thus far, the audio about buying streams is by far the most dangerous clip that we've heard thus far because it's illegal. It's called payola. Payola is a federal crime, right? And so you can't admit to a federal crime and don't think it's not going to be any repercussions to what was said. Now it has to be proven. You have to prove that that this was happening. But the fact that it's mentioned twice, because he mentioned it first with the basically he was kind of going off and saying, look, I bought he didn't get those, he didn't beat The Weeknd. I bought those streams for him to get him to number one. That's the first time he mentioned it. And then I think he casually mentioned it to his manager a second time saying, well, can you do what we did for Gunna for this album? And so it's like twice that he's kind of hinting at buying streams. And so, yeah, that's dangerous. So that's out of everything that was said, like all this other stuff is just kind of just like chatty patty type stuff. Is just like, here's, going back and forth. It doesn't really have any, it doesn't have any effect on anybody. It's just like you just talking about people. It doesn't really mean anything. But the fact that you brought up streaming and purchasing streams, like I said, it could be considered a federal offense. And if this new Justice Department is kind of weird, so I don't know if they're gonna actually go after this. But at the same time, it's like if you admit a crime on a recorded album, I mean not recorded. If you admit a crime on a recorded jail call, that's evidence for something else. So I would be if I'm a part of Thug's team, that's like the most concerning thing right now. They may want to figure out how to get rid of some evidence. I'm not trying to get involved and say, but it's serious. Like payola is serious. But and to your point, I think other artists do it. That's kind of at the center of this Drake versus Kendrick lawsuit, or well, Drake versus UMG lawsuit, is that Drake is saying that UMG bought streams for Kendrick based on Not Like Us, which no one believes that was the reason why he lost the battle. I don't know. But you're right. I think that's something that's done. Like I think it's done. And yeah, it could be something that's looked at further because he brought it up twice. So yeah, I would look out over the next few months and next few years to see if this payola, mentioning of a payola could take off in a certain type of way.
AR, man, Thug, he's make me very nervous because I'm like, okay, phone call after phone call keeps getting leaked.
Yeah.
Do you think that eventually we might be and get to a point to where Thug is admitting to possible crimes on these leaked calls? Also, do you think Fonnie Willis and the city of Atlanta is done with Thug, or do you think that they're still pressing on to try to find some way to reel him back in?
Yeah, so I just want to kind of give everybody some an idea of so when you about jail calls, right? Just give people ideas about how that works, right? So as journalists, there's a thing, they have the Open Records Act, right? So with the Open Records Act, as journalists, we can basically file and say we want a conversation or something that otherwise you might say confidential. You could get access to a jail call. Now, most jail calls are private, and they won't release the jail call unless it's something that's like a crime or something that's detrimental to the community. So otherwise, most jail calls usually stay private, right? But if, let's say, a journalist finds that, okay, we believe that this person admitted to a crime on a conversation with so-and-so, they can submit an open records request for that audio, get the audio, and then do whatever they want to. So I'm not sure if this is the case if someone got an open records request and got that done. Yeah. But that's pretty much how it usually works. Now and then again, it's like if someone's in that system, if they work for the Fulton County jail, or he was at Cobb County for the most of his stay too. So if someone works within that system, they have access to that too, and they leaked, probably could have leaked it as well. So we don't know who leaked it. Now that's going to be the interesting thing in terms of getting to the bottom of the leaks and where those leaks came from. So that may be a whole other thing within itself. So I don't know if Brian's still thinking about putting out a cease and desist, because they could do that as well, put out a cease and desist and try to get to the bottom. And then he could possibly file a lawsuit against the county in some type of way. Not sure if it's going to work, but I'm just saying you have to explore all options in this case. So I don't know if I'm not going to say Fonnie Willis is still trying to, like a lot of people are saying, yeah, Fonnie is releasing these audio tapes. We don't know that. We don't have any evidence that Fonnie Willis is behind the release of these audio leaks. So we don't know. We don't know where it's coming from. But like I say, there's more audio. So he was in jail from like 2022 into like earlier this year. So that's like almost 2 or 3 years worth of audio. And you're right. We don't know what else is coming. Like they're releasing new audio every single day.
Somebody's over this, bro. Hey, they got a whole rollout. Like this coming every day.
They got a rollout.
Yeah, man. Wow. Scary stuff. So Thug being in jail for that long, man, hearing that's a minute. You're talking about 2 to 3 years, right? Man, AR, I think about back in like 2016, 17, it felt like Atlanta was just budding. Of course, we were still dominating, but we had so much young talent. Of course, Migos start going crazy, Ray Shrimmer, like so many others, right? And it felt like everybody was just unified. To now, it's a lot of beefs, street politics. Don't get me wrong, we always had beefs, of course, Gucci, Jeezy being some of the most famous, but it's just right now, everything feels so fractured. Do you think that we could get back to being more unified, or do you think it's more street politics on the way because now we got a younger generation that's also seeing this?
Well, right now it's a lot of fallout, right? Because it seems like when you talk about that next generation, like in my book Trap History, I kind of break trap music off into two generations, like that first generation with T.I., Jeezy, and Gucci, and then that second generation with Thug, Migos, Future, 21. I kind of break them off into different eras, right? That second era of trap music is in kind of disarray right now because of these leaks, because it's like a lot of people are mentioned, Migos are mentioned, Baby is mentioned, P from Quality Control is mentioned. So, a lot of people are involved in this thing in one way or the other. And so it's possible that it could be some fallout. My only my only thing is for us to kind of look at like New York. Like New York in the early 2000s, one of the main reasons why New York hip hop fell out because everybody was beefing at each other.
Ja Rule and 50.
Ja Rule and 50. Jada was beefing with Beanie was Philly, but it was kind of still East Coast. So there was a moment in New York where everybody was kind of aiming at each other. As far as the rappers, they were kind of going at each other. And the next thing you know, New York is done with and Atlanta takes over and it's a wrap, right? So you don't want to get to the point where Atlanta, like the music and the artists can no longer work with each other, because that's kind of what helped Atlanta grow, because everybody was working with each other. Like you could go to a studio and then, an Outkast, you got Usher, then you got a Luda. Like everybody's working with each other to kind of build this thing up. And so, and like I say, Atlanta is Thanos with these Affinity Stones. Like we pretty much have done a great job of like building together. And you don't want this one situation to be like, all right, nobody wants to work with nobody anymore because of this one situation. So we want to hope that it doesn't get to that point.
Indeed, brother, indeed. I'm seeing Thug, right? I think of, because if I'm not mistaken, is he living in Florida? In Miami right now?
He can't come back to Atlanta.
So hearing that, do you feel like Thug, man, potentially he could be iced out from Atlanta because now you have all these recordings coming out. He's not home base no more, so he's already staying out of state. Yeah. So then it's easier to forget about somebody and really isolate somebody when you aren't seeing them as much. Do you think Thug potentially could be isolated and iced out from Atlanta?
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible that he, because it's like you ruffled a lot of feathers with this situation. Like it's something that's gonna have to like blow over. And the only way, like I said, the only way back is to like put out a hit. Like, you got to put out a great music, undeniable music. I hate to use R. Kelly because to me that's like the most significant in our generation in terms of what we seen someone do something horrible and bounce back.
On the Boondocks, they even showed.
Yeah, they did Boondocks episode. They basically said they had R. Kelly dancing in court. As long as you can make people feel good, they forget all your wrongs and everything that you've done bad. As long as you can make people feel good through your music, You could get away with anything.
Wow.
So that's basically right now, that's Thug's only choice right now is you got to make undeniable music that's so great that whatever you've done, people have to forget about it because the music is so great. So that's basically the only way out right now for him, you know. But yeah, for right now, it's gonna be hard for him to kind of like to have that same love in Atlanta, the same way he did, because it was like, you know, he can come to Atlanta and then it's like that's Thug, you know what I'm saying? Like he was, like I said, he was here last month doing community service, and it's just like, all right, he's still getting that love in the city. Yeah. So yeah, I don't, you know, this is going to be interesting to see how he does moving forward.
Yes, sir. In the media, how do we make sure that we aren't sparking more to this argument, to this conflict, right? Because growing up, I would hear stories about how Vibe magazine accelerated Biggie and Pac's beef and East Coast, West Coast. So how do we make sure, especially during this digital age where you got journalists who are streaming now or doing podcasts, doing interviews, media contribution, all of these things, how do we make sure, especially as Black media, that we aren't adding fuel to the fire right now?
It's really about telling the entire story. I think there's a lot of people who are jumping on this Atlanta thing right now. They only using it. They only trying to get it for clicks and views, right? Oh, he said this. He said this. You know, they're Atlanta now. You know what I'm saying? So you getting all this like sensationalized. I won't call it journalism. It's just sensational media or podcasting or whatever you want to call it. But you got to tell both sides of the story. And then just, even with this conversation, I'm saying I'm telling you, all right, this whole street code snitching thing comes from a place of desperation where people couldn't get opportunities. They didn't have education. So their only means of survival became, all right, we had to basically live on the streets and live by these street rules for survival, right? And you don't have these in other places because they have more opportunities. All this is a repercussion of a lack of opportunities. And we're seeing what happens when you have these environments that don't have opportunities. And these are the people that are created from these environments, right? And so to me, it's like telling the entire story, not just the sensational part of it, of, yeah, he's talking about this or he's talking about this person. All right, why is he talking about this person? Like, what is in this dude's mental that's making him act like this? You know what I'm saying? Is there some type of mental health issue? You know what I'm saying? What is really, what's to the bottom of what's happening, right? And like I said, I'm not trying to make an excuse saying that he has a mental health issue. Like I said, it could be a character flaw. It seems like it's a major character flaw. But as journalists, we can't just put that out there. We got to say, all right, what else is there beyond just what we're seeing on the surface? So as journalists, as media, we have to kind of like take both sides of the story and don't just go with the first thing you see or hear. Try to figure out why.
Come on, AR. Man, when I think about our city, right, and I'm seeing all these posts and all this stuff, I'm like, wow, Atlanta has turned into like this fishbowl, if you will, where people walk by and stare at it, extract from things. And I kind of think about what Kendrick was saying about Drake, where he shows up, extract all the resources and goes right back out. And I feel like people are doing that towards us right now. What should people know about our city, I would say Atlanta as a whole, before we start, to your point, sensationalizing things? And Trap History, beautiful masterpiece where you break down all of these things. But what should people know about the true essence of our city besides just YSL or this beef going on right now, actually knowing that this is a real place with real beautiful people?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, because it's like the whole narrative right now is that, you know, Atlanta's falling out because of this one moment. And I'm just like, this one moment isn't bigger than Atlanta at all. Like, Atlanta is so huge in terms of culture, in terms of history, in terms of the civil rights movement, in terms of hip hop, in terms of just what we've done as a city that's pretty much become, you know, one of the most, basically the top Black city in America. There isn't another city in America that's on the level of Atlanta in terms of access, in terms of providing opportunities for people in these communities. So it's like Atlanta is a one of one, right? And so one situation like this isn't going to like tear the entire city down at all. Like, I just think this is just to me, it's a funny moment. It's an interesting moment, but it doesn't like represent the totality of what Atlanta represents as a whole and as a culture. Like we're still winning. Like we're still up by like 100. There's no other city that can compare in terms of culture, in terms of hip hop culture. Like, okay, so let's say Atlanta falls off. Who's gonna be next? Like LA had a run with Kendrick last year and GNX and things of that nature, but they're still not on the level of Atlanta. Like you have a Kendrick and you have a few artists that's coming out on the West Coast, and shout out to the West Coast, they're doing their thing, but it's still not Atlanta. Like New York, they have a few artists that's coming up. They have a few, people that's doing their thing, but and again, it's not Atlanta. Like it's not Atlanta in terms of the powerful structure and how it's influencing people. And so yeah, it's not going to happen in terms of like Atlanta falling off because of this moment. Like people got to know that there's a reason why Atlanta has been so successful for so long within culture. And this one thing that's happening with Thug is not going to stop the momentum.
Talk your talk, brother. From going out to LA last week, coming back home, I was happy to be back because seeing so many black people, honestly, man, in the airport, just going up on the escalator, seeing all the black art, I'm like, okay, I'm back home now.
Back home.
Don't get me wrong, I love LA, but it's like, it was a major difference. Speaking about LA, Kendrick, to your point, GNX, we broke down that album. You did a beautiful breakdown, and I love that album. Hearing Thug mention that Kendrick doesn't put anybody on, and I'm like, did you not? GNX, he was putting everybody on, right? Can you just demystify that myth that Kendrick doesn't put anybody on? Because I think from that phone call, and I saw a lot of people trying to side with Thug, Kendrick, he doesn't collaborate that much, but I'm like, he's a real artist. Like I view, to me, Kendrick as Prince, right? Where he's just to himself, he's locked in, he's focused. But if you can't break down that myth that Kendrick doesn't want to collaborate with other artists.
Yeah, no, it was that myth that Kendrick doesn't want to collaborate with other artists just isn't true. This situation with Thug, and I think him like kind of just being upset that Kendrick wouldn't be a part of his project was where that stemmed from, and that's where it came from. It's just him being angry and like kind of lashing out, being emotional about Kendrick not being wanting to be a part of the project. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, Kendrick has worked with artists, a few artists from Atlanta. You think about Rich the Kid. They did the song New Freezer. Like Rich the Kid, nobody even knew about Rich the Kid. And then all of a sudden you got this dude from Atlanta rapping, and then Kendrick, jumps on, and it's like, oh, okay, that's Rich the Kid. Like, so it's like he worked with Rich the Kid. He's worked with Future. Him and Future did King's Dead on the Black Panther soundtrack. And also Kendrick jumped on the Mask Off remix with Future, and they performed that song it was an award show. I can't forget, it might have been the BET Awards or something. But yeah, so Kendrick has worked with people from Atlanta. Mike Will made it, did a lot of beats on the Damn album.
Forgot about Mike Will.
Yeah,
man.
Mike
That's
Will
a
made
legend.
it, did a lot of production on that Damn album, which won a Pulitzer Prize, right? So yeah, I think that's just I think he was being upset. And so for the people who were like jumping on that bandwagon and say, yeah, Kendrick doesn't work with people, those are the people that I'm sure are like fans of Drake, and they're trying to figure out how to get back in some form of fashion, how to pay Kendrick back for beating Drake in this battle. But Kendrick, he moves when he wants to move. And one telling thing about that conversation that Thug was having with his manager and business partner was that Kendrick doesn't take money. And so, because that's what Thug asked him. He said, Thug asked me, say, with Kendrick, is he gonna take some money? He said, nah, he ain't gonna take no money.
He tried to buy him.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So it's like Kendrick is like, look, if I'm working with you, I'm working with you because I feel what you're doing. I feel what you bringing to the table, and I'm aligned with you. And he's not gonna work with people that's not aligned with where he's going. So that says a lot about him and his character. You know what I'm saying? Without even him being involved in the conversation, says that he's not gonna take money just to be in a certain place. He's only gonna do it if he wants to do it. So I thought that was a major moment where it was like, all right, this is who Kendrick really represents. And then it goes back to the Drake situation where it's like Drake always hopping on these movements, always jumping on these movements. Whatever it is, it's like he's trying to, capture these moments. You know what it is? And I hate, you saw Sinners?
Love Sinners, AR. Love it. Movie of the year.
Drake is like Remick. Drake.
Talk your talk. I'm listening.
No, Drake is like Remick. Drake is like that guy who loves the culture, and he sees it. He's an outsider coming in, and he's seen this beautiful music, and like, how can I get down? I just want to be a part of this moment. I just want to be a part of this movement. and he's gonna do whatever he can to be a part of it. Now he'll align himself with a lot of young, artists that are coming up. But at the same time, it's like, you know, how is it benefiting him?
He's looking for a Sammy all the time.
He's looking for a Sammy, but it's like, and I mentioned this in our last part, it's like Drake doesn't really come from anything. Like what is the Toronto sound? Like Drake doesn't really, his sound is Houston, his sound is Atlanta, his sound is everywhere else except from his hometown, is because he's attaching himself to these movements. Kind of how Remick was with Sinners. Like he was really just trying to attach himself to Black culture in any way that he can. And and Ryan did a great job of pretty much saying it's almost like a vampire sucking the blood out of the culture. You know what I'm saying? So and you have to, and just look at what Drake is doing a podcast with Bobby Atloff.
I was just about to ask you about that.
So he's doing this podcast with Bobby, and it's just like, they're talking about, and he mentions this conversation about him, leeching off of these genres and cultures and things of that nature. And I'm just like, you having this conversation with somebody who's not even in the culture, who's not even of the culture, who basically, to me, she's mocking the culture. Like, oh, I'm this out of place young little white girl, and I don't know what about hip hop, and I'm just here. To me, it's just a bad look.
Yeah.
And he can sit down and interview with anybody he wants to, but sitting down with her tells you a lot about him in terms of, you sit down with somebody who's not going to ask you the hard questions. Why are you suing Kendrick? Why are you trying to put his kids involved in this lawsuit? What's the end goal of this lawsuit? She's not going to ask him that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, she's not going to ask him the tough questions. So it just shows you about his character as well. So I don't know. This whole thing is just like, it's a lot of weirdness going on.
AR, brother, you are cooking this episode. I only got about 2 more questions for you, man. You've been giving us game for almost an hour. Speaking on that about Drake, I was just about to ask you about that, because seeing involved in all of this beef as well, I see Drake attacking hip hop journalists, great journalists such as Rob Markman, right? But then I'm like, Drake, so you attack Elliot, you attack Rob Markman, but then you don't hop on their platforms. You don't want to be asked tough questions, but then you choose Bobby Atloff. We see how media is shifting every single day. We see mass firings, whether that's Fox Sports, all of that stuff. But then I think about our Black entertainers, right? Why isn't a Drake sitting down with a Black media platform? Why is that such a big thing? Because I think sometimes people that's outside of media think that people are just whining. But no, why is that actually important to have Black major acts sitting down with Black journalists to have a good conversation? And I know Drake wouldn't really count as Black for real, but I'm just saying, like, in general, because Drake not viewing it in that way, which of course then confirms not like us even further. But I'm just saying, like, why is that such a important deal to where he chooses a Bobby Atloff over a AR Shaw, a Rob Markman, Elliot Wilson? Why is that such a big deal?
Well, he's scared. He's scared of the conversation, and like he doesn't want to be in situations where he's uncomfortable. And after what happened last year and what's happening right now with this lawsuit, he has to answer uncomfortable questions. And he knows Bobby's not going to ask him anything. Like, she's asking him about fake abs and BBLs. Like, who cares about that, right? Yeah. So yeah, is this that he's like, he's afraid. You gotta understand, like, the title Not Like Us just goes beyond, it's deeper than just the title. Yeah. He didn't grow up in these. First of all, he didn't grow up in America, and then he didn't grow up in the Black community. So he's really learning the Black community as he grows, right? Because he didn't really get access, particularly to a Black community, until he became famous. Mm-hmm. Now he have his father, things of that nature, but he didn't grow up with his father. He was with his mother in Toronto, and so for him, it's like he's trying to learn. He's learning the Black community as an adult, pretty much, right? And so for him, it's just like, I think he still has self-consciousness about himself when it comes to sitting down with a hip hop journalist that's gonna actually ask him those tough questions. And so it's just, we're seeing what everything that Kendrick said about the guy coming to fruition. Like I said, the fact that he would put Kendrick's kids in the lawsuit and also his significant other, saying that he wants evidence that Dave Free may be Kendrick's kids, and wants evidence that Kendrick may have was violent towards Whitney. What does that have to do with bots? I'm just like, what does that have to do with anything? So it's just like, Drake is another one. It's just like, we've seen this dude go off the rails, and every move he's made since the battle has been just backwards.
Yeah.
Like I told you a year ago, I said he should just sit back for a minute, let it die down, and come back. Now, if he would have sat down when I told you that, and he would have came back now, everybody would be like, oh, Drake has been gone for like a year. Like, we want to hear what he has to say.
Wow.
Now it's just like you got this lawsuit that's crazy. You're doing a podcast with Aiden Ross. Like, come on, bro. Like, people that's not really of the culture. So he's just, like I'm saying, he's making the worst decisions that you can make, similar to Thug. So just both making bad decisions. Drake is more self-inflicted in a way, because it was like Thug's situation is like, he didn't really have power. He doesn't have power over who leaked those audio recordings, right? So it's really not him per se being self-inflicted. Now, he shouldn't have said those things, but at the end of the day, he thought those was private conversations. So that's the major difference, is that Drake's is more self-inflicted, whereas Thug is put himself in a situation where someone invaded his privacy, and he allowed what he basically said too much on what he thought was a private conversation.
AR, man, this was a full masterclass. On the way out, very last question for you. Why is Black media so important? Because seeing what you just did for us, breaking this down, was so holistic compared to, average people is clickbaity, rage baity, just to say certain things, but you actually approached it from, hey, let's start off from where they actually grew up, their environments, opportunities, and then that leads you to point A, then to B, then to C, then we get finally to this point. Why is us having Black media so important? And what do you think the future of Black media looks like within the next 5+ years? Because we see so much changing with streaming, all of that. What does our future look like as well?
Yeah, so for the first part, it's important for Black media to have these platforms, to speak on these things, to actually give nuance to what's happening, to actually give a perspective that's not being told. Because everybody else is like looking for the sensational side of it. They're looking at it like, he talked about this person, or he talked about that person. Like I say, let's go back. Let's go back to Cleveland Avenue. Let's go back to why he's even, the person that he is today, right, and why he feels like he has to be this way. And so, we have to kind of come from a place, right? So that's why Black media is so important, because a lot of times you don't really get that full perspective of these individuals who are creating these, this music, or creating art. And so for us as Black media, as Black journalists, we have to tell those stories from a holistic standpoint, from start to finish. This is where it started from, and this is why we're here today. In the future of Black media, I think Black media is in an interesting place, because it's like, on the one hand, we have a lot of like new media coming up that's like giving perspectives and things of that nature. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who are putting themselves in media who don't really have that training, and it's just like they're just saying anything on the mic.
I saw your post too, talking about that.
I said that during the Black Writers Conference. They had a panel discussion on Black writers. So I was talking about that during that discussion that we had. And it's just like everybody, they get these podcast mics and they just feel like they can say anything. And it's just like, no, like, you really have to like understand what you're saying. You can't just say anything. You can't lie. You can't defame anyone. You have to know that even if you know something that's happening, that you have to look at the cost of a community. And so you have to really think about that too. And so there's things that you have to think about before you decide to put yourself out in media that a lot of people are just missing because they don't really have that training, and they're trying to learn on the go. So I think that's the biggest thing. So from that standpoint, I think if people study more and really did their research more, I think Black media will be in a better place. But then again, it's just like we have to also support Black media too, in terms of how do we subscribe to Black media? How do we connect with them? How do we, whether it's articles, whether it's podcasts, whether anything that's Black owned, you want to make sure that you're, making sure that you're taking that content in. And so, for us, I think our culture basically defines the world. The world doesn't move without Black culture, right? And so, whatever happens within American Black culture, you see it impact everybody, right? Just a conversation with Thug having over the phone is pretty much gone worldwide, right? You talk about the YK Niece dance going, going viral. And so we have to understand our power, understand that nothing moves without us, and that if we can basically hone our power and really take advantage of it, that nobody can stop us. So that's what we have to look at it for the next 5 years, is to own our power, and then just take it to that next level, because it's something that can't be stopped.
Man, AR Shaw, ladies and gentlemen, y'all, in the comments, I see y'all every single time say, yo, I love this brother, great breakdown. So, hey, we got more for y'all. AR, on the way out, man, where can everybody purchase Trap History?
Yeah.
Like, comment, subscribe, follow you, Atlanta Daily World, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so check out Trap History, Atlanta culture, and the global impact of trap music. If you want to know about all this stuff that's happening with Thug and how it started, these communities, these neighborhoods, how do we get to today? With Trap History, the book, I pretty much tell everybody how we got to today. And so that's the biggest thing with that. Definitely check me out on Instagram, ARShaw23. Doing more work for The Guardian now. I got some doing sports for The Guardian. So check my stuff out on there. And yeah, just follow my movement. Definitely tap in. Definitely want to have a discussion about, what people. I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with this Thug thing, and how people respond to it. Because like I say, it's 2 years worth of audio, and unless Brian Steele sends a cease and desist, I think we're going to get a lot of more audio recordings coming out over the next few weeks. So,
y'all, it's about to be very interesting times, man. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Show AR some love. Tap in with him. This brother's doing amazing work. Always has been, man. It's always a pleasure. Blessed be your host, Caleb Smith. Until next time, y'all. Peace.